Thank you much. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see what we got going today. I'm going for a very specific sound. Is it bad to use DSP or EQ?
Yeah.
Well,
typically not. It's the only way to achieve it accurately.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
doing it with gear.
It's your taste.
Yeah. Right.
Some people like more bass, other people don't. Right? Some people want a little more sparkle, other people don't.
This is a thing I think most people, like a standard consumer, will be totally unaware of. But from our perspective, we frequently see people coming to us at shows saying, I like things to sound a very particular way, or they have some sort of issue with their hearing that causes not being able to hear a certain band of frequencies. And so they're looking for a certain sound.
Like tinnitus or something?
Yeah. Sure, all kinds of issues, right? And so they need massively exaggerated highs because their high frequency response is very poor. Yeah. Or something like that, or they're very sensitive to high frequencies. Or they can't hear bass, or they like massively exaggerated bass. That tends to be the more common
I'm
ones.
too lazy to use EQ myself. I'd rather get a good sounding component. If I don't like the sound, I'm just going to get a different amp.
Two types of people, I think. There's like purists that are like, I don't EQ anything, I don't want any DSP. And then there's people that all they do is EQ and DSP.
Yeah.
Right? So
See,
you're really in one
I
of
didn't
two.
know that.
Yeah, you're in one of two camps. Yeah.
There's a few people now that are EQing. It's seemingly growing in
There's nothing wrong with
popularity.
that. If it fixes the problem, whatever it might be, it's a lot easier than changing gear out.
Well, what a lot of people seem to do is they try to approach it with a more scientific approach than just kind of guess and checking, I suppose. They typically do measurements, and then they try to cancel out the anomalies in the measurements with their EQ to achieve a more neutral response or the desired target curve.
Well, that'll work maybe in a room with speakers because you got a room to deal with too. So there's a lot going on there. But with headphones, I don't know if it's going to work so much in terms of measuring. But yeah, it's true. We do see that where
that's a more
they
common
measure and
thing.
go, we're going to drop 1 to 2K or increase it.
Well, more recently, I've seen people in headphones EQing to what they think they wanted, and then after you doing that for a while, they figure out actually no, I don't want it EQ'd
which
anymore.
is fine.
So you just
cool.
No harm,
Got that out the way. You don't need to worry about that anymore.
So
there's a bit of a thing where the guys that are in the ultra high end kind of poo on EQ and things. You know?
Yeah.
And I know why. I mean, I really you look at some of these all EQ circuits are not equal.
Right.
I know like we used to do when we first started doing the Diana headphones, we had the Paw Gold player.
Yeah.
And the Paw Gold was built by a company that makes pro audio gear for studios, for TV studios. They kind of had a thing or two, a knowledge of how to build a properly implemented EQ, digital EQ. And they put it in this little portable, and in fact it got praised for having people. I mean, this is a $2,500 portable. It wasn't cheap, right? So, like, people noted, and I'm not sure. I haven't played with EQ and like A&K stuff, and I have no idea. We just kind of plug it in, and it's got a pretty damn good sound, straight out flat. We prefer not at EQ'd, but yeah, people would praise players like that for if you did use the EQ, if you turned it on and used it, it didn't muck up the sound. And I'm sure the opposite is true with other things where they don't put that much attention into an EQ circuit.
Yeah, it's just like a secondary thought.
Yeah,
it's like, well, it has
tone control, so to speak, where they're adding RC net or capacitive RC net, some sort of network where it's some passive tone control. Even that mucks up phase, changes phase a bit. You're messing with the original signal. So flat has always been, even in a 2-channel world, you don't really see on a higher end preamps. You tend not to see tone controls. It's starting to come back a bit because people do realize if you're going to spend all that money on a system and something's kind of pissing you off, like it's a little bright sometimes, it's nice to be able to play with it. So tone controls are coming back, but they're being properly implemented.
It's always nice to have that option. And I think for most people, if you have specific tastes, it's going to be really challenging to achieve it any other way other than using EQ. So whether or not it mucks up the sound, that's up to you to decide.
It's kind of a trade-off.
Right? It's probably never going to make it better in terms of the harmonic structure or detail and stuff like that. Like, it's never going to enhance that per se. It might improve your perception of it. And so there's trade-offs there for sure. But you could try it both ways, right? That's most people are doing digital EQ, so it's very simple to adjust it, turn it on and
Have you
off.
played with EQ on any of your stuff?
I find that, yeah, I've EQ'd stuff, but
You tend to do it in small. I bet you do it in small amounts. You're
Well,
not
yeah,
you're not putting
but
20 dB
I
on
think,
the 20 hertz or
I hope
something like
not.
that.
I think
really.
as a general rule, though, it's always like on cheaper headphones I find EQing them.
Right.
Because it's like they're either like a lot of bass and it's like just way too much,
Yeah.
and then you gotta lower it. So I think, yeah, the higher end stuff you don't need to EQ as much usually.
Right.
And if you are EQing anything, you're very specific and small
Right.
adjustments.
And the
So-
opposite's true too. If you need to make large adjustments, you might want to look at the
Yeah,
system.
yeah, you got
and the
something.
headphones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
Because if you're doing a ton of EQ, that's
Yeah.
never a good thing. You use something somewhere along the way. You probably got the wrong headphone.
We talked about this in the video where we talked about how the industry changed. Over the years, the gear has definitely narrowed on a similar scope. Everybody's hunting for a similar target, neutral, flat, it seems. And so I think that's probably a part of the reason why people have a bit of an uptick in DSP and EQ, because it's easier than ever, and it's to some extent more necessary than ever, because all the high-end gear is pretty similar. Like, it's very neutral compared to how it was. You used to be able to get more interesting sound signatures from high-end gear than you can now. Now you don't see that often. And so if you're looking for a specific taste, I don't see any other option.
Yeah, and digital EQ is usually pretty good, and if it's done in moderation, it tends to be less destructive than the analog versions from past. And that's the thing, though, that's followed suit for decades now, where just in the high-end audio circles, that tone controls are just bad, that you shouldn't have them, And I think because they sucked in the past, and they just never.
Plenty were terrible,
Yeah,
no doubt. But some are good.
I don't know. I used to like it when I was younger. When I was in my teens, I loved cranking the bass control on my receiver. I mean, the speakers sucked anyway. Just crank the bass. So, but that, of course, those are skewed. That's a skewed compared to what we're at today.
Well, yeah.
But I wouldn't want to do that nowadays. Probably blow up an amp or a woofer. But yeah. So I mean, I think I guess it's cool at the EQ things if you need be, but do it in moderation and. And then always go back to where you started. Always go to flat, so you kind of don't forget where you were. You don't. And the other thing to don't forget too is like when you EQ something, when you go to plug something else into the system, like a different headphone, go back to flat because you don't want to EQ something that doesn't necessarily be EQ'd. So and sometimes I always forget that sometimes someone comes up to us with a portable and you plug an amp or something, right? And you plug it in. And you plug it in our headphones, and you're listening to it, and you go, Jesus Christ, this is boomy, right? It's like, do you have EQ on? He's like, oh, yeah, I was over at so-and-so's booth. So, you got to watch it with the EQ. You can't, you can fool yourself if you forget it's on, particularly if it's in moderation. You might not even, you could completely forget.
Well, you're EQing the system.
Yeah, the total system.
So, yeah.
To your ears. On that note, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching this episode of Top of the Line, and look forward to seeing you at future episodes. Take care. What is detail? I mean, we should start defining what is detail.
Because you can't take a picture. You can't do an A-B comparison. And so I think a lot of people, it's easy to convince yourself that there either isn't a difference or there's a bigger difference than there really is. And it's really difficult to prove either way.
Well, I think for one, you got to start with a track you know very, very well.
It helps.
You've heard it, you know it, every